Hey everyone, it's Irene. These are questions that were submitted on an Ask Me Anything here on Instagram, and rather than doing a long video, I'm cutting these up into short chunks. One person asked, can focusing on sensations also lead to even more dysregulation? In other words, focusing on the breath when in freeze, focusing on butterflies in the tummy when hyperaroused, because it emphasizes autonomic nervous system signals to the brain and body that it is in danger. Hope that makes sense. So it totally makes sense. So the answer is yes, we can focus on these things in our body, and if we don't know how to be with them in a contained way, and we don't know how to, the fancy word in somatic experiencing might be pendulate our focus and attention to somewhere else that is less intense or less scary, yeah, we can focus on that one thing, that tightness in our, let's say, chest, in our throat, and get so worried about it that it gets worse and worse and worse, to the point where we might even pass out. And I can't quote this research, but I remember listening to something, forgive me if this is not 100% accurate, but some of the bigger problems for folks when they were sick with respiratory illness in the last 4 years wasn't the actual illness and the infection, it was the anxiety around the inability to breathe. And I remember, because this happened to me, and I remember sitting in bed thinking, as I felt the congestion in my lungs, wow, if someone didn't know how to shift their focus to the environment or somewhere in the body that felt better, I could see how this restriction of my airways would cause me to go into more panic, lower oxygen levels, and we know that that can cause a cardiac arrest. It just, the heart will get electrically out of sync if we put ourselves into such a survival stress state. So it is actually very important, if we want to really work with our systems in a good way, in an intelligent way, to learn how to refocus our focus to somewhere else in the body. Now, this is why this term, one of the things I've studied and practiced, is somatic experiencing. It's kind of false advertising in some way. No offense, Peter. I mean, I do somatic experiencing with people. That's what I practice. That's what I've learned. But somatic experiencing is not all just about the somatic sensations. It's about safety. It's about finding capacity and foundation and regulation. And that might mean going to a resource like something on the outside of us to divert our focus away from that intense sensation in our throat, in our belly, wherever it might be. So yes, we can get more dysregulated if we focus on our sensations. We can also get more dysregulated. For some people, when I teach orienting, it's too much, because the outside world in the history of their life has been unsafe. So why the heck would I want to orient to out there when out there is nothing but trouble and always gets me into bad situations, or, our abusers are always outside of us. They're on the outside. So why would I want to look around? Because what was around me is what caused me harm, right? Now, typically, and this is not always the case, but typically when someone has this hypersensitivity to their sensations, can be lots of reasons, but in a sense, our system is not able to self-regulate. If we had good nervous system regulation, we would feel that sensation and we would divert our focus somewhere else just organically. It would just happen. I just answered a question about babies and how much babies should cry. And this relates to this. So if we were that baby that was left to cry and cry and cry, and nobody ever soothed us when we were hungry, when we were tired, when we had gas, when we were afraid, we can get locked into only feeling our bodies and it being too much. Or the flip side, and this is why there's no one size fits all for this work, we can disconnect, go into this what we call freeze response, and maybe go into collapse, and then we just stop feeling anything. Two people can have had the exact same early developmental trauma, and one might be so hyper-focused on sensation that it's debilitating. Another might be so focused on the environment because that's where the danger came from. And another, if I put this other scenario, might have been so good at freezing that they don't notice anything. I don't notice anything. Everything is fine. I'm kind of acting here, right? Everything is fine, no problems. I can handle everything. I'm as cool as a cucumber. I am even keel. Throw me anything, I can take it on. But that is often, not always, but it's a sign that we have gotten really good at suppressing our emotions, our sensations, and they're in there, but we have masked them so much that we don't know how to listen to the language of our body. One thing that occurs when people start to come out of their functional freeze is the sensations will feel too much because they're so new. And that can be alarming. And this is why, again, when I teach people how to work with this, we are not diving into big cathartic practices to open up the vagus nerve or open up the gut or open up the emotions or the love or anything like that. We are going so slow and so titrated so that the system can easily soak in the new information. It's like a sponge. If you have a sponge that is dry or a desert, I'll use that as an example. If you have a desert that has had no rain and no water and you flood it with water, what's going to happen? Nothing is going to sink into the earth. It's just going to roll off. This is where flash floods come from. So if we think of the system, if we haven't prepared the system to take in these drops of sensation, emotion, memory, environmental stimulus, even connection. For some people, connecting with another human being is way too much. They have to do it from afar, right? So that flash flood happens because the ground cannot bring in moisture because it has been so dry. It is the same thing with the human system. If we have not prepared the body to know how to bring in and soak in these new biological feelings, experiences, survival stresses that we're starting to move up and out, the system can revolt and go into more dysregulation. And we don't want that. So that is the answer to this question. Again, the question was, can focusing on sensations also lead to more dysregulation? And the answer is 100% yes. And if that happens, it doesn't mean that your system is broken. It just means it has to relearn how to be with sensations and how to be with the intensity. I'll give one more metaphor. If you're learning how to exercise for the first time or do some form of physical movement and you've never done it before, do you go and do 7 hours of it right away? Probably not. You have to prepare the body for that. You do little bits. You do 5 minutes, you do 10 minutes. And then before you know it, you can do a little bit more and a little bit more. And then the capacity builds and you become more attuned to your system and you know when you can push and when you need to back off. It's the same thing. All right. That's the answer to that question. Hopefully that helps some understand this work a little bit better. And oh, by the way, if you haven't started any of my stuff, I don't just hang out here on Instagram. I have a whole other site with free resources, classes, programs. All my credentials are over there. Tons of articles. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube videos. So be sure to check all that stuff out. And there are ways that you can start to learn how to gain these skills with me and my team. Thanks, everyone. Bye.